All right, guys, I think we'll get started. So good, everyone, and welcome to this tutorial. This is part 2 of our ArcGIS series, beginner tutorials. So this is from DRH. I'm Davis. This is Luke, our coordinator. If you guys need help, please come to us on level 2. And on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we have planning help desk from 9:30 to 1. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Every other time we're still open for general inquiries and 3D printing, laser cutting, and there might be still help around for you if you come on other days as well. Cool. So this is part 2. So this is a continuation of yesterday's tutorial. Yesterday was more about getting used to ArcGIS. This is more about what you can do with ArcGIS in the industry from our experience during internships and whatnot. Cool. But I'll still go through the basics of ArcGIS, maybe from a different lens from yesterday, because there's new people here as well who didn't attend yesterday's tutorial. Cool. So first off, ArcGIS is obviously a GIS platform. You can work with data, you can show it, you can analyze it, and it's very powerful. You may think you have a good handle on ArcGIS, but if you go to the industry, there are people who use ArcGIS for various things, and there's very complicated processes, especially in geoprocessing. But yeah, it's a new version of ArcMap, and it's from Iziri. Okay, so first of all, let's actually compare these data sources. So if you go to your Chrome or whatever browser you're using, we'll just go through these data sources. So I guess the workflow is you have your data sources, you then bring it onto ArcGIS to edit, analyze, etc., make maps. But first off, you got to know what's out there to see what you're using. So first off, this is coordinates. So this is coordinates. If I go to the map view, you can actually bring in stuff from coordinates, and coordinates is the basis of some other services. So if you guys want to jump onto coordinates, go for it. It's on Chrome. You do need a login, and it's a free sign up. But you can get primary parcels, property titles, digital elevation models, which I will touch on later, contours, etc. And you just add it to the map and you just export. It's fairly straightforward. I'm sure you guys will figure that out. That's all good. So back to the presentation. We have geomaps. Who's used geomaps? I'm sure you guys are used to geomaps, yeah? Most people? Some people? Okay, sweet. Geomaps is essentially it's a viewer. So you can extract data from it, but it's more of a viewer for council data, specifically Auckland Council data. Obviously, you can add things. You can go to environment, and it will give you more options on catchments, hydrology, etc. You tick it, go down, and you can see, for example, overland flow paths. And sometimes you just have to zoom in, because if you zoom out, it might not appear. But zoom in just to see that. And so geomaps is more of like a viewer. It's you can extract data from it, but it's essentially a viewer of council's data. You can go to extract, which is over here, agree, and you can tick what you want. But obviously, you can see this is quite limited, right? But so recently, council has created a thing called Auckland Council Open Data, which is specifically for dragging data into ArcGIS or QGIS or whatever GIS you use. And you can see here, for example, there's contours, there's the tsunami evacuation zone. There's also, for example, if you want to see the inundation zones for sea level rise, there's all of these different layers or shapefiles you can bring into ArcGIS. And this is something you won't find on geomaps. The geomaps is essentially a viewer. So if I just go into this, I hope it loads. If I zoom in, should hopefully come up with something. I think. Let's go back and see anything else. You just have a play around with this while I find something that actually shows us up. It shows up. Okay, there you go. Okay, I guess it's showing up there. Exactly. Cool. So obviously what you would do is you would download this as a shapefile, not a PDF, because we want to drag in shapefiles into ArcGIS, not PDFs as you see with GeoMaps. You don't. It's a different workflow. So how you would do this is you would just basically, first of all, you will filter what you want. So if I go to, I can actually draw a line. I can draw an area, and then I can filter it. Go to data, and then what I would do is I would go to download, and I would download as a shape file. That makes sense, okay? You can also use GeoDatabase, but I recommend shapefile because you guys are starting off. Cool. Next data source is Land Information New Zealand, or LINZ, and this is built on the same platform as Coordinates. So you do need a login, a sign up, right? So you just search for data, you add it here, and you export as a shapefile. You have a Waka Kotahi. So the good thing about Waka Kotahi is they have data on center lines of state highways, because they control the state highways. Auckland Transport controls all the local roads in Auckland, but Waka Kotahi controls all the state highways. So if you want data on, for example, state highways, center lines, or national pavement conditions, or whatever, or CAS data, which is analysis of crashes in New Zealand, use Waka Kotahi. And just lastly, Auckland Transport opened GIS data. Obviously, this is bus routes, trains, everything else in Auckland, transport-wise. And yeah, cool. So just to make it more simple, so if you go to this PC, so can everyone please go to this PC? It should just be on the side. Is everyone there? Okay, sweet. If you go to Scratch, you go to 2024 GRS tutorials, and you go to other GeoMaps and other data. There's a bus service, shapefile sort of files I've uploaded. When you export files from like Open Data, Open Transport, etc., you get a bunch of files. You don't just get one shapefile, and that's how GIS data works. Because all of these files are accessory to this main file, to the shapefile. So what you want to do is when you're transferring files over or you're moving folders, you always want to copy this in all of these files. If that makes sense, okay? So copy these files, okay? So Control C, go to your documents, for example, make a new folder. Sorry, Luke, I'm gonna make a new folder on your computer. So good. Okay, cool. So make a new folder. Name it something you can remember later, because we're gonna use this. So I'm just gonna say ArcGIS tutorial 2. Okay, and then paste your data into there. Okay, now let's open up ArcGIS. So just search for ArcGIS Pro. Cool. So if I create a new project, a new map, name it something, and just have a look at where it's saved so you can go back to it later if you need to. So this is saved, most usually you have an ArcGIS folder in your documents in OneDrive, and it's saved in the projects folder. Okay. Cool. So your screen should look pretty similar to my screen. If it doesn't, a very good trick is to go to View, So for example, if you are doing something, this little panel goes out here, and you're like, oh, it's not going back into place, or it's not fitting back into place. Just go to reset panes for mapping. So if you find yourself, for example, your contents pane has disappeared for some reason, just go to reset pane. So view, reset panes, and reset panes for mapping, because we're mapping right at the moment. So that's a very good little tip just when you're starting off. Cool. Obviously, this is ArcGIS. It's very icon based, so it's quite easy for new people to start off. You have your map, all your map features over here. You have inserting, and this is where you add data, add folder, analysis, so geoprocessing, buffers, network analysis, etc. View, editing, which is where you add data, create data, imagery, and other things. But that's the basic sort of structure or the UI of ArcGIS. Here's like a a basic diagram of the UI. Cool. Right. Just before I get into industry applications, I'll just let you guys see what ArcGIS is for a second. Just have a quick whiz. Any questions? Let us know. One thing I'll point out is if you go to map, you go to base map. There's already a set of preloaded base maps, which is very handy. So there's aerials, NZ imagery hybrid. So I guess this is one of the benefits of using ArcGIS to make maps for Studio. Obviously, in some cases you would use Illustrator, but this is the workflow you actually want to use, because you can zoom in, you can zoom out, instead of just grabbing an aerial from GeoMaps, putting it in Illustrator, and then you're just stuck with that extent, because your canvas is only so big. But here you can zoom in into other places. You can do whatever you want, because it's an active portal. It's not stagnant like what you see in Illustrator. Cool. Okay, so let's add our bus stops in now. So please go to Insert, Add Folder, okay? And then find where you saved your bus service or bus stops. So for me, that was in Documents, and I saved it as ArcGIS Tutorial, ArcGIS Tutorial 2. Don't click into the folder, just click on that folder from its main. So don't do this. Just go back to the main sort of area where it was saved, and just click on it and go OK. Cool. And then hopefully on the right side on your catalog pane, so we call these panes for some reason, I'm not sure why. Pane, this is the contents pane. This is your tabs, ribbon tabs. But if you go to databases, if you go to folders, so folders on the right side, and if you go to ArcGIS Tutorial 2, not the home one, the other one, and maybe we should have named it as data, but ArcGIS Tutorial 2, you should see just the bus service shapefile, which is in green. Add folder, just click on refresh. Try that refresh as well. Cool. Oh, by the way, guys, this is Zane. He's our technical lead for DRH. He is our guru for all things technical. So yeah. All right, cool. So now simply drag the bus service into your map. And let me just change the base map so it's more visible. So maybe change your base map if you want to see those bus lines more clearly. Does everyone see those bus lines, those bus services? You can change it to NZ light gray canvas, or anything with a light canvas, light background. NZ navigation is fine as well. There's also an OpenStreetMaps, just for your future reference. There's an OpenStreetMap base map, and that's quite useful because it contains like what you see on Google Maps. So all of those, um, points of interest or restaurants, things like that. That's also quite helpful when you guys want to use that. Yeah, that raises a good point. You can switch on, switch off things just like an Illustrator. So tick them, untick them. Cool. Right. Okay. Let's leave it for that. Let's just leave it there, and let's get back to the sort of industry applications, which is sort of the basis of this tutorial. Okay, and we'll come back to ArcGIS. So, uh, what can you use ArcGIS for in industry? So basically, it's got a variety of uses from geographers, urban planners, engineers. But just some examples here from what I experienced. Obviously, you can create walkable catchments, which is also something we're going to explore in this tutorial. But walkable catchments are basically, how far can you walk as a pedestrian within a specified time. So you would maybe, if you were doing transport planning, for example, you would say you would be looking at a new set of stations, bus stations, and you would say how far can you walk from each bus station, and so how much access do you have within that neighborhood? Yeah, you have that, and this could be based on population and employment predictions um, from other sources of data. You also have ArcGIS dashboards, and this, if you realize, a lot of like the Auckland Transport Open Data portals and Auckland Council Open Data portals, they're built on Esri's ArcGIS platform. But this is the next step. So if you want people to see your data much more clearly, you can do an ArcGIS dashboard. Does anyone know what this is? Do you guys remember what this is, this dashboard in particular? It's a very famous dashboard. Yep. No? You might have seen it during COVID. So this is the John Hopkins COVID-19 dashboard, which basically gave us where COVID was happening, how many cases were happening in each country. So it was a good illustration of how ArcGIS dashboards can be used, and obviously this was very popular during COVID. But yeah, it's basically a map with data on the side, and this can be done through ArcGIS online. But yeah, and you also have GTFS data, which is at the bottom over here. And this is all the data you see on AT Mobile and Google. So all of those timetables, the times they give us on which buses arrive, the trains, etc. That is all based on GTFS data, and that's held by local councils, local authorities, and you can drag that data into ArcGIS and also sort of analyze it or run models or whatever. Cool. Today we're going to be looking at walkable catchments. So there's two types of walkable catchments in this image. First, you have the buffer, which is a more of a sort of a basic walkable catchment. It shows how much distance a person can cover within a specified time. This is, I think, 800 meters, which is 10 minutes walk. But it's not really accurate, as you can see, because obviously people can't just walk through buildings or go through buildings. So it's not that accurate. So it shows, which I'll talk about on the next slide, how people can walk, but at a very basic level. So the next step nowadays is the walkable catchment, which is what you see in orange. And that uses data to see how people actually walk on the streets. So what are the walking conditions? Are the footpaths wide enough? Is there a road? Is there like a rail line blocking a street, for example? So that's a dead end. So it captures all of that. And this is from the NPSUD, which is a very important document, which illustrates how density must be increased within a sort of 10-minute, 15-minute walk, depending, around city centers and major transport hubs. So you want to build higher with this transport hubs, which makes sense. Cool. And yeah, so today will just be sort of like doing a quick walkable catchment around Britomart, but you would need, so first of all, let's do a buffer. Yeah, let's do a buffer first. So first of all, let's create a center point on Britomart. So if you go back to ArcGIS, you go back to Britomart, maybe jump onto OpenStreetMap so you can see where exactly Britomart is. It will point that out for you. So it says Britomart here for me. So this is OpenStreetMaps. Zooming into Britomart. Hopefully everyone is there. Yeah? Cool. Okay. Then, so we're creating data now. We're creating our own data. So first, go to Edit, go to Create. Okay. And you can, add to bus services, one thing. Sorry, my panes are not coming up properly. I'll just go to Edit, user page for mapping. Okay, so on your right side, you see a catalog. See the catalog? Go to your database. So database, click on that little arrow, right click on the database, the ArcGIS tutorial database. Okay, right click on it, go to new and click on feature class. Is everyone there? You should get this pane. Okay, so guys, good. So we're going to create our data now. So let's firstly name it. So let's just type in Britomart. Okay. Difference between name and alias is name, you can't have spaces. It's got to be like one sort of word, as you can see here. Alias, you can have spaces. Okay, so we're going to create a point data so that we can sort of extend our buffer from that. So that will be a center of our buffer. So there's different types of data. Obviously, there's polygon data, which is shapes. There's line data, which is the same thing we saw before, which is the bus service. That's a line data. But we want a point data. We just want to like illustrate where on the map Britomart is. So click on point. Don't worry about Z values. Click on M values. That's all good. And just click on finish. So just make sure you have point and click on finish. And you should see something appearing on your contents pane on the left side. You should see Britomart appearing. Let's change the symbology. So just click on the little green dot, click on it. And you should have the symbology pane coming up. And just, for example, click on this red, something more, more bigger, more vibrant. Cool. Okay, now we have to actually place our points where we want. So now go to Edit, go to Create, and you should see your catalog pane changing into Create Features. Does everyone see Create Features on the right side? Cool. Yeah? Click on Britomart. Yeah? Click on Britomart, and you can see that now you can place your point somewhere on the map. Okay? And I'm going to put it right here. I might put it actually. Yeah, just somewhere here. Cool. Has anyone marked that? After there? Yeah. Cool. And just click tick at the bottom so you can exit out of this feature, of this layer. Okay, and go back to catalog. Just so we're out of that. And also actually at the bottom, because you're under edit, click save as well. So you have saved your edits. If you go into your bus service attribute table, you can see there's already lots of information there because we just pulled that from AT. Cool. So Let's get out of this. Just click on the X if you want to exit out of the attribute table, this little X. Okay, cool. Now let's make our buffer. So if you go to analysis, this is where all your analysis tools are. And so if you go to pairways buffer, now we just have to input some features in. So input features obviously will be Britomart, which is our center point. Record speed processed. We might just share things. Should be okay. Output feature class, name it what you want, but Britomart pairwise buffer is fine. Linear unit, and the unit we want is meters, and let's draw a 800 meter buffer, which is a 10-minute walk. And so if I just go back to the slides, just a quick sort of little table. 400 meters is a 5-minute walk generally, 800 meters is a 10-minute walk, and 1,200 meters is a 15-minute walk generally. This is obviously considering able-bodied people, and cyclists cover much more distance. Cool. Just some information there. Planar is fine, dissolve is fine. I'm not too concerned with that at the moment because it's just starting off. Let's run it. Hopefully you should, when you zoom out, you can see a big circle around Britomart. So for the next part of the tutorial, it's going to be more like you guys watching me because we're going to be creating a walkable catchment. You can follow along, but for this you would require a ArcGIS online account. You use geocredits because the walking catchment that I showed earlier, which is this thing, the orange part, that requires ArcGIS to grab data from Azeri's cloud service, and for that it requires credits, and for that you would need an ArcGIS online login, which you can request, right, Zane? How does that process work this year? Would you be able to tell us?
Good question. Who's an urban planner? Most of you? So hopefully you should already have an account. Are you guys first year? Yeah, mostly? Probably not. If you can just email drh@auckland. Well, first of all, try and log in. So he'll create he'll try to log in. I'm going to put money on it that he can't. It will be the same process. So when he logs into it, have you logged in yet?
I have, but I'll show them again. Cool. So how you would do it is you would go to the top right hand side, sign in, and don't sign in here. Go to this option, type in UOA. So you can try it now if you want. So UOA, continue, and then just type in your login details. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to jump into creating that walkable catchment around Britomart. So what I would do is analysis, and then I would go to network analysis, and you can see this is my data source, and I will click on service area, which is developing those polygons around Britomart on how much a person can walk within 800 meters, a 10-minute walk. So it's right now creating a new layer for me. Cool. So for me, on the left-hand side, you can see here. So this may be more of a case of just watching me doing it. So as you can see on the left side, you can see facilities, which is basically the locations you want your walkable catchment to originate from, the center. So centers of your walkable catchments. You have polygons, which is essentially the output, I think. Then you have lines, you have point barriers. So if I just go back to the slides, it does give you a bit of a. So there you go. So facilities, starting point, polygons, lines, these are the resulting walking catchments, point, line, polygon barriers. So these are barriers that you can put into the system, into the program, and it will consider those as barriers when you're walking. So on the ground, when you're walking, there might be a closed road, for example, that the ArcGIS servers won't pick up. Maybe it's a recent one that happened just today. So you can input that in so that when it's calculating it, it will consider that barrier on the field, on the ground. But yeah, so if I just go back. Cool. And now I would just input my facilities. So I would go to service area layer, click on service area, input facilities, input network analysis, facilities, input locations is going to be Britomart. That's all fine, that's all good. Apply. Cool. So that looks like it's been inputted in. And then simply, I'm not going to go into these point barriers just for the sake of time, in case you guys have questions at the end. So we'll just hit. Check. I'll just hit these. I'll just go into these layers into this tab, and I go on. So there's different options there. There's driving distance, driving time. There's trucking distance, but we're interested in walking distance. You can also type in walking time, but walking distance is also fine. And it's in kilometers, so just make sure you convert. Away from facilities is fine. And this is where you type in your the amount of distance you would want to see. So 0.8 is 800 meter, which is a 10-minute walk. Not using time, that's fine. Standard position, that's fine. I guess high precision will use more credits. So I guess depending on how much credits you have, I think standard is fine for our case, but high if you want to be really precise. Overlapping is okay because we're not creating multiple, we're just creating one walkable catchment. Rings, that's fine as well. Polygons, you can also create lines, but polygons are what we want for now. And you would just click on run. And you can see on the right side, it is executing at this time. And yeah, there you go. That's a walkable catchment. But obviously, you see, you would have to sort of put in some line barriers to show that this viaduct is out of bounds. Obviously, you can't walk on the water. So there are refinements you would have to do when you're doing this, actually. But yeah, and so that is a walkable catchment. You can just sort of compare the difference between the buffer and the walkable catchment right now. But yeah, and that's basically it for that part. If I just go back to the slides. Yeah, just you can compare two and see the difference between both of these tools. Some may be more apt in another circumstance, whereas others will be. So interesting capabilities of ArcGIS Pro. Just to finish off, basically, you can also view 3D scenes, as you can see on the screenshot over here. This is just showing sort of like how many units, the distance between rail stops in San Francisco. But yeah, and you can also import digital elevation models, which is basically a more accurate way of displaying topography in ArcGIS. The topography you get that you get default on ArcGIS is accurate, but not as accurate as the ones you get from Auckland Council, obviously. So you can bring those in, and you can, for example, do rainwater catchment calculations, which is quite essential for water engineers. And some of my water engineer friends do use ArcGIS for that kind of stuff. But yeah, and we will try to give you more exposure to these in semester 2 during our tutorials, which will be more sort of advanced intermediate. But we're just starting off with these beginner tutorials in semester 1. And yeah, Lastly, map, that's 2D map. Catalog is obviously, your data management. Global scenes is what you saw before, maybe this sort of scale. And local scene is more 3D local scenes. And that is basically it, unless you guys have any other questions. But yeah, thanks for coming along. And yeah, just open to questions now.